What's up, y'all? I'm Mr. Richard. This is I'm So Beastly, episode 18. I have not recorded in quite some time. I posted an episode a few days ago, but that was recorded so long ago. I honestly have no idea when. I forgot completely, mostly forgot what I said on it. I listened back to it and um, I thought it sounded pretty good, but it's been a while. It's been a while. Life's been pretty crazy. It's exhausting being a teacher. I'm not gonna lie. So days that I have time to record, and it's just it's hard to do. It's hard to set aside the time and get into the mental state. Since I mean, it is exhausting being a teacher physically, mentally. Not so much physically. Mentally, though, it is absolutely exhausting mentally. And so every time I do have the day, I spend my time writing. I try to write when I can. Um, I'm currently actually I think the last time I recorded was before I started this new book. Um, so this new book, A Year in the Sandbox, is completely based around my own genre, sandbox literature, and it is restricted in the sense that I cannot, excuse moi, I cannot read anything I've written before, right? So I can only read what I'm writing in that given moment on that day. I cannot edit anything. Like at the end, I can edit, grammatical mistakes, throw some commas here and there just to make it prettier. But the words are the words. The words stick. That's it. Um, I can't plan, so I have any idea what I'm going to write moving forward. Um, and the story must be cohesive from start to finish. And I also have to do it from October 15th, 2025 to October 15th, 2026. So it is an entire year of entries. Every entry, every day I write must have a starting point and a ending point, uh, a finish line, but it must also connect completely to the story that has been written previously. So it's a lot of interesting entries. And I guess what works for me in this sense is now I will never do a project like this again. It's very demanding. It's, just human nature. You're curious about what you wrote. You're curious how things are going to end. You're curious how they're connecting and what they're doing. Um, and um, but but yeah, it's I completely forgot what I was going to say. But it's full stream of consciousness. Like I will say this, any of these previous stream of consciousness writers, um, most of them, most of them are not stream of consciousness at all. They edit heavily, right? Stream of consciousness, it's not you can't edit it, right? If you're truly going to be a stream of consciousness, it's not edited. It's a raw in the moment thought. What is your mind in? Like what is your mind thinking in that moment? Okay. But oh yes, what I was saying is for me it's not terribly difficult to a degree because I can basically remember everything I've written previously. Not like the tiniest of details, but I can remember the big things. Like I know the events, I know the places, I know who the characters are, not necessarily sometimes what their names are or how to spell them. Like, and that will be one thing because names, I don't think names are super important, but what they are, what they do in that moment, that is super important. So that is one thing that I will allow myself to go back and do at the end is make sure that all the names line up properly for each of the characters because that just I that's just one thing that I don't think that necessarily changes the story or the experiment in itself. So I'll go back and change the names. just make it easier on the reader, honestly. Um, but, and I will say this, I don't connect the previous dates. However, I do take my entries and put them into AI to get a rating of cohesion from, each entry, right? So I don't have any spoilers. It's not telling me what I wrote previously. It's just saying, is this cohesive? And for me, I mean, I've written 24,000 words without reading any of it. Um, and so I don't really think that's cheating in the experiment if for it to say like, hey, yeah, this is cohesive. Hey, yeah, your voice is staying the same. Oh, yeah, your characters are in line. Right? I don't think that's cheating at all because it still doesn't give me anything from the story. Right? But that's just full disclosure on that. Anyway, enough about me. That is not at all what we're talking about today. I guess it is because we just talked about it. So whatever, there's really nothing's technically off limits. So like we come on here and we start talking, and I didn't have any plan to talk about the book I was writing, right? But oh, yes, let me get back to it. I suppose the reason I brought that up is because my mind is split between loving I'm So Beastly and really enjoying writing A Year in the Sandbox. And it's hard to do both when I have the time. I mean, this is about 30 minutes, but it's a little more of a process, right? When I do A Year in the Sandbox, I open it up. Yes, it's probably a longer time. It's probably an hour, but it also, I don't know, there's just something about writing instead of talking. And I guess it's easier for me to sit down and write than it is. Mm, fresh gingerbread, black coffee. Yeah, very delightful. But I don't know. It's just easier for me to write than to get up and speak. Sometimes I just don't want to speak. Sometimes I just want to type. Sometimes I need that silence. I don't listen to music when I write. I sometimes listen to frequencies, but mostly it's just I'm in silent. I'm just, with my thoughts and we're just ripping. And in a stream of consciousness style, you really can't listen to anything but frequencies because it takes you out of that zone, right? It's really hard to put a story together, put anything together if you have all these distractions coming in into your brain, into your mind, into your ears, into your circle, your whatever you want to call it. Uh, but uh, but yeah, so that's why it's been so long since my last episode. Um, and I've had ideas to come on here and I've had ideas to come on here and talk about things like, and we will have an episode about this. I want to talk about Atlantis on an episode. Um, a download that I received about Atlantis and how it actually aligns to um, certain descriptions in some what you would call, I guess, some sacred texts, not the bigger ones, but more like um, anyway, it aligns to ideas that have already been out there by historical figures. But we'll get into that when we do that episode. Um, and, there have been a couple other ideas that one really stuck out to me. But the one that we're talking about today, the main topic today is, and I don't even know how to specify it, but the reason I have this idea why I want to talk about this, and I'm sure it's been talked about before elsewhere. It's not necessarily an original idea, um, but it just this made me realize that what I'm going to talk about is not only possible, but also very probable. Okay, so my girlfriend's niece was having they were in the store and they came across a huge statue of Santa, and she starts talking in some random language doing her thing, making her motions, making her faces, and and she's struggling to walk. She's young. She's real young. She's working her way. She's learning to walk right now. She's does it pretty well now, right? But you see this progression and the language that she was speaking in that we could not understand, right? And they kind of did a movie about this concept, I guess, called Baby Geniuses. I think something like that. Um, but where the babies could communicate with one another, and obviously the adults could not understand them. And so this kind of set in motion this entire idea that they're learning how to be human, right? They're not learning how to, excuse me, how to exist, how to do things. They're learning how to do things in a human way, right? So their language that they speak, babies can understand babies. We cannot understand them. They're not learning language, right? They're trying to learn Earth language. And by doing so, by learning the different Earth languages based on where they're born, based on where who they're growing up with, what household they're in, they're forgetting their native soul language when they come here in order to learn this Earth language that we have created as humans that they need to learn to fit into society, right? Babies are far more, and young children are far more capable and intelligent than we give them credit for. When they speak, when they say things, when they do things, right? They can see things that adults just can't see anymore, right? You have to be on a certain frequency to see the things that children see. Some adults can, most adults cannot. And a lot of that has to do with getting back in touch with your childlike state, right? When you first come here, you're still connected for the first few years of your life. You're still connected to that soul realm, essentially, right? You're still like that's when you can see beyond the veil. The veil you have not been sucked into the 3D life of the human yet, right? You're still living in that 5D realm, right? For the most part. When children say they have an imaginary friend, to them it's not imaginary, right? It is there. They see it. They interact with it. When they're speaking to themselves, a lot of times they are speaking to something they actually see. We cannot perceive it, right? It's the same thing as the frequency test with the ears. The older you get, the lower the frequency that you are capped out at. So as you're younger, right, you can hear a super high pitched frequency. The older you get, the lower that frequency gets that you are able to hear. The same thing is true of what we can see, what we can experience, right? So frequency is everything. You have to be tuned in to be able to experience something. And I mean, honestly, it's the same thing as, it's let's go back to an actual internet meme that happened a few years ago, and I'm sure everybody knows it. It's the blue dress or the gold dress. And right there, that's based on how your mind works. What frequency are you tuned into? And obviously, I mean, it was a global phenomenon, but it's a different example. It's a it's a small example to the big picture, right? So if some people can see it as a blue dress, some people see it as a gold dress, then obviously you're not seeing the same thing. And that has to do with, how you perceive reality. That all connects to the frequency that you're on, right? Some people see, a sunny day, birds chirping, lush green, couple clouds in the sky, just cool, it's just there. Some people see that as a beautiful day, and others say, "Oh, I can't believe I wish it was raining right now. I wish it was thundering and lightning. I wish it was, storming. I hate these clear days." And that's some people, and then so some people hate clear days, some people hate stormy days, so they don't see things the same. Another small example of how you perceive this. Some people perceive, um, $100 is a lot of money. Some people wipe their butts with $100. right? It's not, it's just how we perceive things, right? Our experiences, our position completely determines how we see things and what our world is like. But so what I'm getting at, when children speak, we need to pay more attention to them. And I'm starting to think that they come here with this language, right? And we see it as gibberish because they don't speak English, they don't speak Spanish, they don't speak, Portuguese, they don't speak Italian, German, Russian, whatever, right? They don't speak Russian. Fun fact about Russia, actually, it has 11 time zones. Interesting. Uh, Irrelevant to anything we're talking about right now. However, fascinating indeed, right? But babies, they before they learn the language that we teach them, they come in speaking what we consider gibberish. Let's just call gibberish the language of children. Let's call gibberish the language they come in with, the soul language. Right? They come in with this. They can communicate with this. If we found a way, and I mean it would be almost like decoding uh cuneiform. It'd be very difficult because how do you have if they're all young and incapable of communicating, and obviously they're going to forget this language the older they get, right? But if we could somehow record all of this so-called gibberish that these children speak with and somehow translate it, I feel like we would and understand it more, we would have a much better understanding of where the soul comes from, right? They are not, the souls come into these human bodies, right? We are not this human body. This is not us. We are the souls inside this body. Okay, that is what we are. And so when our souls come to this, when we sign our soul contract and we come to earth and we partake in human life, right? We're not learning how to do these things for the first. So we're learning how to do this in a human way. We're learning how to be human for the first however many years. I mean, we're constantly learning how to be human. Even adults, we're learning how to be human. It's complicated. It's not an easy thing to truly be human. I mean, that's why there's so much conflict because everyone humans in a different way. And that is partially why we need to understand the transition period more. We need to understand these children more. Their knowledge, they're so much smarter than we give them credit for because they're not smart, they're not knowledgeable in the ways of the human, in the ways of earth, in the ways of society as we see it. But they come in with so much more knowledge and so much more vision. And honestly, some of them, have lived many more lives than us. So you could have a 5-year-old who's lived, you know, maybe this is their 300th life, but they're five, so they're considered, unintelligent or, lacking in knowledge. And then you have a 50-year-old who is in their first life, but they're considered smarter than this 5-year-old. But we don't, in a lot of ways, yes, they are. Okay. In a lot of ways, human ways, they are. However, we don't take the words of this 5-year-old in the proper manner. We take them for granted. We kind of just brush them aside, what they say. We need to start taking it, more as a learning experience, right? Try to understand what they're saying, understand what they know, study these children in obviously a moral fashion, a proper way. Study them. They're the ones that are transitioning. They have the most recent transition from the soul plane, from the astral plane, right? They are the most recent soul contract signees. So if we can understand where they're coming from and get them before they forget their knowledge, then we can progress in a much quicker manner, right? If we can understand that, then there's really, it's just, it opens up an entirely um, new avenue to understand what all of this actually is. I mean, if I ever have a kid, I'm gonna do my best. Obviously, we can't be perfect. We can't record them all the time. We can't, figure out what they're saying all the time. But, if we can somehow find a way to translate and learn the language that they come out the womb with, that they're speaking to us with, that they're trying to communicate with us with, right? I feel, and if we were somehow able to communicate back and forth properly, I think we would be much better for it. And this is obviously all theoretical, okay? In the sense that it might be an impossible task. We may never be able to translate what they're saying, right? This may sound crazy to some of you, but if you're listening to this and you're 18 episodes in, then it probably doesn't sound too crazy, right? You may not be, let's say, agreeing with what I'm saying, but it might not be the most off the wall statement. And that's kind of, you know, beyond that, I just feel like I do know we basically the first 5, 6, 7 years of their lives, they're in the theta brainwave stage, and that's where you can create the most. That's where these creative powers are, right? If we allow these children to express themselves more properly, like watch what they draw, watch what they create, watch what they say, right? Jot it down, record it, study it, understand it, right? They are saying much more, right? Okay, if you have a child who's creating these beautiful pieces, let's say of art, whether it's could be sloppy, but beautiful in the sense that it's probably saying much more than we realize, right? Children aren't necessarily bad at these things. They're bad at these things from the eyes of the human. However, if we look at them from the eyes of the soul, maybe they're trying to say more than we give them credit for. We need to, as adults, stop brushing aside children because they're younger and just start treating them as humans. Obviously, you need to, as equals to an extent. Of course, we need to teach them how to properly behave in this human world, right? In this society. However, just because they're younger doesn't mean they do not have knowledge, doesn't mean they don't understand things, right? And that as adults, as a society, that is what we need to start understanding. And we need to think about changing our ways in that respect. Um, but that's all I got for you. As always, I guess that maybe not as always. I don't know last time I said that, but okay. As always, do your own research. If anything I've said here sparked an interest of yours, I would love to talk to you. I'd love to have you on the podcast. Um, you can email me. My email will be in the description. It's mrrichardwrites@gmail.com. I'll also have the links to my two books. Also, if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, by all means. If not, no sweat, no worries. But, you know, follow, subscribe, all that jazz. Give me a solid rating. It helps boost the show, helps get the word out more. If not, it's okay. That means it's just, it'll find the people that it's meant to find when it's meant to find them. Um, but yeah, that's all we got. I'm not the best at concluding. Um, so I guess we'll do just that though. Ta-ta, kittens.